Most parents think 529 plans are just for college savings, but today they are far more flexible and far more powerful than most people realize. In this video, I'll show you how 529 plans really work and how smart parents should think about these 529 plans in the AI era to build a more flexible financial future for their children and future generations. For decades, parents were taught something very simple: work hard, save aggressively, fully fund college. And honestly, for a long time, that strategy made sense because college tuition kept rising, degrees became increasingly important, and higher education was viewed as one of the safest investments for children's future. But in 2026, I believe something important is changing. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is transforming both education and the job market faster than most families realize. Career paths are becoming less predictable. Many entry-level white-collar jobs are already changing rapidly, and even graduates from elite universities are beginning to experience a much more uncertain labor market than previous generations expected. Now, to be very clear, I am not saying elite universities are no longer valuable. The top universities still provide powerful networks, strong signaling value, elite recruiting pipelines, and long-term career advantages. But what may become harder to justify over time is paying extremely high prices for middle-tier outcomes with weaker economic differentiation. So in this video, I want to show you how smart families should rethink the entire purpose of 529 plan in the AI era, not just as a college savings account, but as part of a much larger strategy about flexibility, optionality, and long-term financial advantage for their children. Let's start with the basics. A 529 plan is a tax-advantaged investment account primarily designed for education expenses, and honestly, it is still one of the best financial tools available to parents. Why? Because your investments grow tax-free, and if the money is used for qualified education expenses, withdrawals are also tax-free. That means no capital gains tax, no dividend tax, and no taxes on qualified withdrawals. And the money can be used for tuition, housing, meal plans, books, computers, graduate school, and even certain K-12 expenses. So yes, 529 plans are still extremely powerful. But here's the key question: are families still thinking about them the right way in a rapidly changing world? Today, students can learn coding, business skills, languages, and even advanced technical skills using AI tools and online platforms that cost almost nothing. At the same time, employers are increasingly desiring real-world skills, adaptability, creativity, communication ability, and AI fluency, not just degrees alone. And here's something very important. As someone who works in higher education, I do not think elite universities are collapsing. But I do think the traditional model of elite degree equals guaranteed career success is becoming weaker. Many elite graduates today are discovering that the labor market is becoming more competitive and less predictable. Why? Because AI is beginning to compress many traditional entry-level white-collar jobs such as basic coding, routine analysis, presentation preparation, and repetitive office work. Those jobs historically served as stepping stones for many graduates. So over time, I believe higher education may increasingly split into two major paths. On one side, extremely elite universities with strong branding and network effects may continue retaining significant value. On the other side, efficient public university pathways may become increasingly attractive because of much lower cost, lower debt burden, and solid educational outcomes. But the middle tier of very expensive private education may face the most pressure, and this creates a very important planning question for parents. how much educational capital should really be locked into a specialized account. Now here's a fear many families quietly have about 529 plans. What if I save too much? What if my child gets scholarships, attends a lower cost school, chooses entrepreneurship, pursues a non-traditional path, or simply does not need all the money? For many years, people viewed 529 plans as somewhat risky because they feared the money could become trapped. And honestly, that concern used to be much more valid. But here's the surprising part. More than 529 plans are much more flexible than many people realize. And this is the part many people completely misunderstand about more than 529 plans. Many families still imagine a rigid account locked forever for one child's college tuition, but today's 529 plans are far more adaptable than that. For example, unused 529 money can now potentially be rolled over into a Roth IRA for beneficiary. Think about how important that is psychologically. Instead of fearing unused funds, parents can now potentially help children start tax-free retirement savings decades earlier than most people. Now here are the rules. The account generally must be open for at least 15 years, and the rollover must go to the same beneficiary. Lifetime rollover cap of $35,000 apply, and annual IRA contribution limits still apply. So the transfer happens gradually over time, but still, this is a major shift. Parents no longer need to fear every unused dollar inside a 529 plan. Now here's another reason I think 529 plans are much more flexible than many families realize. Most people think a 529 plan is only for one child's college education. But actually, one of the biggest hidden advantages of a 529 plan is its multi-generational flexibility. Because unlike many other financial accounts, a 529 plan can continue evolving with your family over time. Let me explain. Suppose you save diligently for your child's education, but later, your child receives scholarships, attends a lower cost school, earns a substantial income, or simply does not need all the money. Many parents immediately worry, did I overfund the account? But here's what many people do not realize. In many cases, you can simply change the beneficiary with a 529 plan to another qualifying family member. For example, another child, a sibling, a future grandchild, nieces or nephews, or even yourself in some situations. That flexibility is incredibly powerful. And personally, I think this changes the psychology of 529 planning completely, because now the account no longer needs to be viewed as one account for one child. Instead, it can become a long-term educational family assets. For example, imagine this scenario. You help your children graduate debt-free. Years later, there's still money remaining in the 529 account. Instead of withdrawing the money inefficiently, you could potentially rename future grandchildren as beneficiaries. Now the same account may continue compounding tax-free for another generation. Think about how powerful that could become over decades. A 529 plan created today could potentially help your children, your grandchildren, and maybe even future generations beyond that. And there's another important point many parents overlook. As an account owner, you usually maintain substantial control over the account. That means you control the investments, you decide when distributions happen, and you can often change beneficiaries if family circumstances change. Even more importantly, when parents pass away, ownership of the account can often transfer to a successor owner that you designate beforehand. In many families, that successor owner may be the child themselves, so your children may eventually continue managing the 529 account for their own future children. In other words, the account can potentially become a multi-generational educational investment vehicle. Now at this point, you may be thinking, wait, if 529 plans are now this flexible, why not just put everything into them? And this is where balance becomes extremely important. Personally, I no longer view more than 529 plans as dangerous trap accounts, the way some critics are describing them. I actually think more than 529 plans are incredibly useful and surprisingly adaptable. However, they are still primarily designed for education, family educational transfers, and long-term educational wealth building. Meanwhile, the future may require flexibility beyond education alone. Young adults may increasingly need capital for entrepreneurship, housing, relocation, career pivots, or opportunities completely unrelated to education. And that's why I personally prefer a hybrid strategy, not because 529 plans are bad, but because future uncertainty argues for balanced flexibility. So personally, I think many families should consider a hybrid framework. First, use a 529 plan to build a strong educational foundation. For many families, that may mean saving enough to comfortably support a strong flagship public university education, plus some additional flexibility. Then second, build flexible assets outside the 529 system as well. For example, some families also use UTMA accounts, UGMA accounts, taxable brokerage accounts, or Roth IRAs for teenagers with earned income. Those additional assets can later support education, entrepreneurship, relocation, housing, career transitions, or future opportunities we can't even predict yet. So the goal is no longer maximize one account. The goal is build a flexible financial system for your child. Now here is something most parents misunderstand completely. They ask, what is the best 529 plan? But that is actually the wrong question. The better question is, what is the best 529 strategy for my state? Because 529 benefits come from two different layers. First, federal tax-free growth, which applies nationally. Second, state-level tax benefits, which vary dramatically depending on where you live. And in many cases, state incentives can be worth thousands of dollars over time, so your location matters enormously. Let's start with Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is considered one of the more 529 friendly states. Why? Because Pennsylvania allows residents to potentially receive state tax deductions even when using many out-of-state 529 plans. That creates tremendous flexibility. Pennsylvania families can often choose highly rated national plans while still preserving state tax benefits. So many Pennsylvania families optimize for both investment quality and tax efficiency. Now let's look at New York. The New York Direct Plan is widely considered one of the strongest low-cost 529 plans in the country. Why? Because it offers low-cost Vanguard index funds, strong simplicity, and excellent long-term investment efficiency. New York taxpayers may also qualify for annual state tax deductions on contributions. They can typically deduct up to $5,000 per year for individuals or $10,000 for married couples filing jointly from state taxable income. So for New York residents, the math becomes you're getting tax-free investment growth, plus annual state tax savings, plus a high-quality investment menu. This is why New York's 529 plan is often considered one of the strongest all-around choices for in-state residents. Now New Jersey becomes especially interesting because New Jersey offers several unique incentives through the NG Best plan. New Jersey offers a standard state deduction for 529 contributions. New Jersey taxpayers with gross income of $200,000 or less may qualify for a state income tax deduction for contributions into a NG Best plan of up to $10,000 per year. They also offer one-time grant of up to $750 matched dollar for dollar of the initial deposit into a new NG Best account for a new beneficiary for New Jersey residents who have an annual household adjusted gross income between $0 and $75,000. In addition, New Jersey's NG Best 529 plan offers a scholarship incentive. If your child attends eligible New Jersey schools like Princeton University, Rutgers University, or NJIT, they can receive a tax-free college scholarship worth up to $6,000 depending on how long the plan has been open. The longer you contribute at or above minimum contribution levels, the greater the college scholarship amount. And this leads to what I think may be one of the smartest strategies for many New Jersey families. If you're qualified for the NJ state tax deduction, you are better off using the New Jersey NJ Best Plan, which will also give your children scholarship or even matching grant. However, if you're not qualified for the state tax deduction, then you may want to contribute just enough into the New Jersey NJ Best Plan to qualify for scholarship eligibility, while putting most of the remaining 529 money into the New York Direct Plan. Why? Because the New York plan generally offers lower fees, excellent Vanguard index funds, and very strong long-term investment efficiency. Meanwhile, the New Jersey contribution may preserve access to the NJ Best scholarship incentives. In other words, NJ families may potentially combine one plan for incentives, another plan for investment efficiency. And personally, I think this is one reason 529 planning has become much more sophisticated today. Families are no longer simply asking which single plan is best. Instead, they're asking, how do I combine flexibility, incentives, tax efficiency, and long-term investment quality together? Now let's talk about contributions. Most people contribute gradually. In 2026, each person can contribute up to $19,000 per beneficiary. So two parents together can contribute up to $38,000 per child per year. And this is the standard contribution framework most people use. But the IRS also allows something called 5-year gift tax averaging election, or so-called superfunding. This means a parent can contribute up to 5 years of gifts at once. So if the annual exclusion is about $19,000, you can contribute 5 years at once, about $95,000 per parent per child, or about $190,000 per couple per child. This allows families to front-load multiple years of gift tax exclusions into a 529 plan all at once. Why would someone do this? Because earlier investing creates more time for tax-free compounding, and for families with a substantial saving capacity, this can become a powerful long-term wealth building strategy for future generations. But it does come with a key limitation. That is, you cannot make additional gift tax-free contribution to that child for 5 years without using lifetime exemption. Now personally, I still think some families should be careful about aggressively overfunding 529 plans, especially families who are behind on retirement savings, have a high interest debt, lack emergency reserves, or may need liquidity for business or housing opportunities later. Remember, you can borrow for college, but you can't borrow for retirement. So before aggressively maximizing 529 contributions, families should first make sure their overall financial foundation is strong. So what's the real big picture takeaway here? For decades, parents optimized for one primary goal: maximize educational funding. But the world is changing. The future may increasingly reward adaptability, resilience, creativity, and lifelong learning. And that changes how smart families should think about financial planning. Personally, I think more than 529 plans are now far more flexible and powerful than most people realize. The Roth IRA rollover rules helped enormously. Beneficiary flexibility and multi-generational planning flexibility are also super helpful. So I no longer view 529 plans as rigid educational traps. At the same time, I still believe families benefit from balancing structured educational assets with broader financial flexibility outside the educational system. Because ultimately, the goal is no longer maximize one account. The goal is build optionality for a child's future in an uncertain world. And honestly, the greatest gift we may give our children is not simply education itself, but the freedom and flexibility to adapt to a rapidly changing future. Now, if you find this video helpful, please take a second to give it a thumbs up. It really helps more families discover these strategies. and make smarter long-term decisions for their children. Feel free to share this video with other parents who are thinking seriously about college planning, financial flexibility, and building a stronger future for the next generation. And if you want more practical, real-world strategies, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll be sharing more practical, real-world strategies to help families save smarter and live better. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.